Andy. So before we started working together, like where were you like really like day to day, physically and mentally? What was your life like?
I think I want to say probably like the month before we started working with each other, I was in like a really good place of what I thought, like where I should be. Because I had already kind of been trying to lose weight for a little over a year, and I had gotten down about 130 pounds. But then I think so I started in well, it probably was close to a year. I started really honing in January of 23, and we didn't start working until the end of February of 24. So right after the holidays, I was like, I'm back on track with everything I had been doing, but nothing's changing. And even though I had lost 130 pounds, I was just the same shape of person that I had been at 400 and something pounds. Just I weighed less and I could wear like a shirt or two sizes smaller. So I wasn't putting on any muscle. I did feel better. I mean, you lose 130 pounds, you're not carrying all that around with you, but I wasn't feeling like as good as I thought I should be. And so I was counting calories and I was making sure I was what I thought was prioritizing protein. Um, but looking back now compared to where I am, I don't think I was in as good of a spot as I thought I was.
Because you've been with me almost 2 years. We're rolling up on 2 years in February.
Yeah, this February. Yeah.
What were you frustrated about that made you realize like you couldn't keep doing it the same way that you've been doing it before?
Well, I know, I tried to train. I was training 5 days a week before I started with you. Now, I had no idea what the heck I was doing that whole time. I was watching a few YouTube videos here and there, and I had friends, from either church or just people, clients that I work with that were like, "Hey, I know you're doing stuff. Try this, this, and this." And so I was taking everything everyone was saying, and I was just trying to put it in a blender and see what would come out from that. So, looking back now, I don't even the training I was doing, I was definitely burning some calories, but I was not focusing on anything specifically. So I was frustrated in that. I'm sitting here, I'm training 5 days a week. I feel like I'm busting my butt. And like I said, other than the weight falling off before it started to stall, like I said, I didn't look any different. I know for a fact my shape, the body shape I had at 260 pounds was exactly the same of shape that I had at 400 and whatever.
That's
So
hilarious.
that frustrated me. I was like, I'm doing all this stuff and other than dropping weight, I look the same.
What were like when you first started? What were you skeptical about? Like, was it the process? Was it me? Because we met online. We met on Instagram. Like,
Yeah.
so what was going through your head? When all that happened.
I mean, there is always that little thing. You meet somebody online, well, am I getting, is there some Arabian Prince or something on the back end of this that's trying to take money from me? But I mean, that wasn't really my main concern. Uh, my biggest thing is what I would, what we would be doing together. Was it going to end up being sustainable? And was I going to end up just wasting my money on it the whole time? But that was my only drawback. Can I actually do this? And is it going to benefit me financially to do it? And so because I knew I could hunker down and do whatever you told me to do, but whether or not it worked, because I mean, I was at the point I didn't grow up with a family that knew anything about health. They didn't know anything about nutrition. So I didn't know what to expect at all. Because what I had been trying from people that I thought were healthy was had gotten me to a point, but it wasn't really changing a whole lot. So I
Yeah.
was like, what is this Matt guy going to bring to the table that's so revolutionary? But that was really the only setback. I was like, is it going to work? I don't know. Everybody else that's been telling me it kind of works, but not really.
What was like the moment early on where you're like, okay, this is different.
Well, I think it was the first week. So you had asked me kind of what I had been eating up to that point, and I mean, other than shifting, I mean, I didn't really track fat and carbs at the time, but I know for a fact that I was probably, well, no, I know for a fact I was way heavier on fats than I was carbs. And so I know you shifted that around and my calorie total bumped up just slightly, but shifting macros around and eating in that macro breakdown, I didn't feel like I could finish everything that first week. And so I was full, but I also didn't feel disgusting. I was full all the time, but I already noticed in the first week I felt like I had more energy and training didn't feel nearly as difficult that for just in the first week. And so, but I want to say like 3 weeks in, my body's finally getting used to everything. And so like the food thing, I mean, training too, like I told you, I didn't know how to set up a training of any kind. So like I didn't know about splits. I didn't know about like what to train on this day, what to train on that day, and how to make sure you're not overworking certain muscles. But like I want to say the nutrition was the biggest thing for me. Because like I thought I was doing good, and everything I had thought I was doing was not full 180 different, but like it was pretty close. I want to say at least it was 100-degree difference.
What's it? I guess how was this like just different from just getting like a meal plan and a workout? Like what else did you get that you weren't expecting?
Well, I mean, obviously, lots of communication back and forth with you was something that I really didn't expect. I thought you were going to throw this stuff at me. Here's your training, and then good luck, my man. Like we'll check up in a week or two and we'll see how it's going. But like the communication was a big thing for me because I my biggest thing was is and still to this day, eating rice every day is not something I can do. It just doesn't agree with me. And so I remember when you gave me that, it wasn't necessarily this is what you had to eat, but here's an idea of what like meals would look like with these macros. Rice was like in every meal. And so I remember going to you, I was like, can I change that for something else? Because like this is there's no way I'm going to the bathroom. I'm eating rice 3 times a day. And so like I don't know, the biggest thing for me, you gave me the macros, you gave me the idea of food. So I was literally just going to stick with that initially, but then learning that you can mix and match. And then we even talked about foods, like the difference between a simple carb and a complex carb. So, rice wasn't okay for me to eat at every meal, but then I learned about some other complex carbs, switch those things around. So just learning the communication back and forth between me and you, that which not only was great for when I needed help with training, but also the fact that I could learn on the fly in like almost instantaneously. So like, hey Matt, got a question. I can't eat this, but I want to try it for something else. And then you're like, well, try this. I was like, perfect, I've got that. So like learning was, I don't know, just came on so quickly because we were able to talk so freely.
Yeah, I think that's something pretty different. The amount of communication that I offer for most coaches is just not there. So
Yeah.
I definitely pride myself on that. What did accountability actually look like for you in the process?
Uh, Scary in a good way. Because it was like I've got this app, I'm logging my stuff in here, and I mean I take pride in like being completely open and honest. So like the fact that I was putting in exactly what I was doing, and I still do that to this day, and knowing that you're going to look at it and either, I mean, at the time I was doing everything you told me, like down to the T. There wasn't a night that I went to bed and I never went over on a macro at that time, and I wasn't under on anything. So I was on the dot every single day. But like knowing that you were going to be looking at that, just knowing that you would be looking at it was the accountability I needed to make sure that I was hitting those things every day and then doing exactly what the training said to do. So I know not everybody's quite wired like me, but just knowing that you were going to be looking over this stuff was exactly what I needed at that time to make sure that I was doing everything you asked me to do.
Was there a specific moment that like things really clicked for you?
I want to say, I mean, I feel like I'm still learning every day, but I want to say it wasn't as soon as I would like it to be. It was probably a short, probably last summer, really. I mean, other things clicked, but after I finally broke down and got my hormones checked out and we started getting things optimized.
That was a game changer for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just let's
Yeah.
just put it that way.
I want to, that was when the rubber really hit the road for me.
It's so funny now because you're the person that will text me and be like, "How was I even functioning
Yeah.
before?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know," because it's such night and day, and nobody understands it because they're comparing their normal to like what they always feel like versus what's optimal and where they're at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I look back to the long cut that we were on, that first 10 months we were working with each other. And I remember there was like the volume leg day that was on that when I was training almost 7 days a week. There was one day of the week, it was volume legs. That workout would take me 2.5 hours. And I remember 4 or 5 times I would be bawling down here in my home gym because I was like, I can't finish this. And I'd managed to work my way through it, but like I have no idea how in the world I was doing that back then at all. I have no idea.
Crazy. Well, let me get this. Here's that. What result surprised you the most? Was it physically or was it mentally?
Mm, I mean, definitely both. I think mentally more so than the physically. Because I mean, I still look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you're just still a fat little freaking chunk or whatever. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But the mental is definitely the biggest thing for me. I'm I guess I always kind of knew I was tough, but I didn't know how tough I was. So like, not only did I find out how tough physically I am, grinding away, just trying to not just lose weight, but put on muscle over the year after we were done with that big long cut. But like, I'm a lot more mentally tough just from all of that, because having to push through all of that, the mental and the physical are really hand in hand when we're talking about making sure you're hitting all your nutrition, getting all your training in. So like when I started seeing how physically tough I could be, as much as it sucked, the mental toughness came with it later. Like I don't look at most situations anymore like I did in the past. Most stuff seems kind of easy now when I look at it compared to before. Um, so it's just kind of crazy.
Let's see. How do you show up differently now compared to when you first started?
I want to say, so I still find myself doing this sometimes, but not like I used to. In any situation, it didn't matter if it was going to be a good situation. If I knew there was going to be something that good was happening, or even if I was anticipating something bad happening, I used to sit there and think about every possible outcome of every single thing that could happen. So if I approached it in this way, this might happen or this might happen. And well, what if this happens when I do this? And I would just end up in a spiral of getting myself all worked up for no absolute reason. So instead of approaching things into what could happen, whether it's good or bad, I kind of just go into everything just anticipating like I can only control what I'm controlling in that moment. So instead of working myself up for no reason, and most of the time, I think a lot of us do that. Most of the time, we get in these situations and we think about too many things. So we're already expecting something bad to happen before it's even started. And I have to say, I think some of the things that happened in my life that I thought were bad were probably because I was just overthinking everything to begin with. So I approach things as to, taking things as they come. And then I expect it to just work out from now on instead of just going into it overthinking everything. And I have to say, most situations seem to work out just fine in any situation. Like I'm literally talking about anything. It's very open and vague, but like I'm talking about anything. Whether it's a trip to Walmart right before the storm's coming in, or if it's dealing with a client on the phone at work, like I'm not going into that thinking something bad's going to happen anymore.
Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with testosterone too. I meant to send you a study, but it just shows how men on TRT are they're much more sociable because they don't worry as much. They're more risk adverse and they're less agreeable. So it's like they feel like they can handle whatever comes their way, which is pretty. It's just which is true. And if you look back
Yeah,
and you compare yourself now, you're like, oh, okay,
yeah, and
I
and
see
even more so in the last 2 months. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. You're learning what high T is now. That's the beautiful part. Um, what feels easier now that used to feel like a constant battle?
that's a good question. That is a good question. I think it goes back to your last question, navigating the unknown. That's a lot easier for me now than it was before. Like, I mean, we're still dealing, we're waiting. Kayla's still going in. I think it's February because everything's so backed up in the medical field, for her to get that scan done, on her ear to find out what's going on inside her head. But like situations like that, I still, when you get the bad news or something that could be bad news, I'm still going to think about it and kind of work through things initially. But like, I'm not just approaching it as everything's going to be bad the whole time. So like we don't have an answer yet, so I can't really focus on that right now.
Do you feel now that you like whatever comes your way, like you're going to be able to handle it?
Yeah, I do.
I
Yep,
think
100%.
that was kind of like a big change for me Is was like no, like because I've been through a lot of stuff, crazy madness, and it's like no matter, I'm just so confident that like no matter what, I'm not going to die, and
Hmm.
eventually I'm going to. So it is what it is. Um, how has being coached by me and being part of the program, how has it changed your life outside of the gym and food?
Um, in a lot of ways, I'm trying to narrow it down. I feel like every aspect of my life is completely different. Um, People view me differently, both, I guess, in a good and a bad way. I've noticed, like, some people are like, I mean, we've talked about this. Some people are like, man, you look great, and they're really happy. And then I feel like other people that I thought were my friends before, they don't really talk to me anymore. So, that's changed. It's different for me. I've never really experienced that before. But I want to say in every aspect. So, like I said, nothing really seems like it's out of the grasp. Nothing feels too overwhelming to work with. I know going into anything that we shift here moving forward, whether it's training or nutrition or we're trying something else new, I kind of just I try to trust the process overall, not overcomplicate things, but like I feel like even with my two sons, I feel like I've got a good grasp on trying to make sure that they don't grow up the same way that I did. And I couldn't have said that 2 years ago.
That's huge. Two questions for you. How do people treat you now that you're not a fat kid versus and you're fit and in the gym and can take your shirt off at the pool versus how they did when you were overweight? How do people treat you different?
I feel like so people do treat me different, and like I said, it's both good and bad, and nothing that really upsets me either way. But like I've got people that are always curious, obviously, well, how did you do this? And most people are pretty open to talking to until you actually tell them what you did. And they're like, well, that can't work. And I'm like, well, look at me. I mean, like, and then you've got the other people that like I don't know. There's one guy that I go to church with, and he's a cool guy. I like him. I see him every weekend. We serve on the same team together, and I mean he's just overweight. He is. I'm not here to judge. I was overweight too, but like doesn't matter what I tell him. Everything I'm doing is wrong. Absolutely everything. And I'm just sitting there like, well, my blood work's the best it's ever been in my life, and I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. So I don't really know what else to tell you. So like you got the two completely separate ends of that. And so like I find more people have doubt what I say now than they did before, but I think it's just because they don't like to hear what like how I got to it. Like no one wants to hear that like yeah, I'm still pretty strict with how I eat and I train and all that kind of stuff. Like but not in bad ways. Like I'm not doing anything anyone else couldn't do sustainably. Just most people don't want to do that. So.
If someone was listening to this, well, no. I have a second question. So, in the 2 years that we've worked together, how many times have I told you something and it been completely wrong?
Zero.
This is
Zero.
a
There's been a
this is
couple
a
of times I've been like, I think he might be wrong this time. And then about a week or so later, I'm like, nah, freaking Matt's right again.
there's a running joke between us just because like there's so many things like it's just like that old like grandpa knowledge, like those years of experience of like trust me, buddy, this is what's going to happen, and you're like whatever, and then you're like, dude, he's right again. What the hell? You know what I mean? If someone was listening to this and they sound like the old you, what would you want them to hear? Like if you could tell somebody that sounds like the old Andy, the skeptic, the one that thought they were doing everything right, but still wasn't seeing progress, what would you tell them?
You'll never see change until you like, or I'm sorry, until you want where you need to be more than you like where you're at. That's what I would tell them. Because you'll never see change until you want where you need to be more than you like where you're at. Because, a lot of us, I think everybody wants to change, or at least likes the idea of wanting to change and get better. But even me, I was guilty of it for forever and ever and ever. We're too comfortable where we're at, and we'll try one thing, and that doesn't get us to where we thought quick enough. And so then we're just like, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing because it's not doing anything. But Like until you want where you need to be, until you want to make that change, until you're ready to actually sit there and grind it out and do whatever it takes, and you're okay with that more than you are just sitting there not changing a whole lot, there's not a whole lot you can do for yourself. So that's exactly what I would tell somebody. They, you could have 50 people hire you, and unless they're actually willing to do what you tell them to do, there's not a whole lot that's going to happen for them.
Listen, compliance is always going to be like the number one the factor for success, and I think that's speaks highly of you because you have been so compliant and you've listened, you've been coachable, you've asked questions, and I've always been able to explain them as to why, and that's completely okay because guess what? Like we talked about, we learn together. You know,
Hmm.
I'm trying. It's my job as a coach to also be a teacher. And so I'm not just blindly telling you to do something for no reason. You know what I mean? So I think that's pretty important. Um, what would you say to the version of yourself that almost didn't sign up with me because of the skepticism or the questions? What would you say to that person?
I'm glad you signed up. But in all seriousness, like I would just say to them, like, look, you've got nothing to lose. I mean, other than, I mean, they're obviously you're going to pay for your services, but like when it breaks down to it, the worst that can happen is nothing changes. But seeing as you look like you're in a rather good shape, there's probably a lot that you can teach whoever it is. So like the worst that happens is nothing happens as quickly as you want it, but I think that's going to be for anybody, or nothing changes at all. But like you've got nothing to lose when it comes to like your story when we chatted back and forth before I signed on really just hit home for me because you had been where I had been. We were both fat kids growing up, not really a whole lot of guidance or at all of any kind with activity level or nutrition or anything like that. So that I know that's not going to hit home for everybody, but that hit home for me because I knew exactly what that felt like and was still dealing with that at the time. So I knew you could relate. But like, there's not the proof isn't the pudding. You got too much on your social media. You got too many people that have can back up what you say. There's no one can lose from signing up with you unless they literally don't do what you tell them to do.
It's always the factor, dude. It's always the factor. I mean, and you've seen it too, not just with yourself, but with other people inside the group too.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
like daily, like you're constantly seeing wins and wins when people are following. And I try to say this all the time, like it's never going to be perfect. Like nobody's going to have a perfect plan where like everything goes like to plan. Like we're in an ice storm. You're snowed
Yeah.
in Ohio. You know, it's just is what it is. But there's always a way to continue to move the needle forward. And I think that's what I'm always like pounding. Just get better today, somehow, some way, just a little bit better. Because it's not going to be fixed in today. You know, we didn't get
No.
fat today. So
Nope.
we learned together. I think the coolest part with us, and I did and see, I sometimes I don't know because I've been 20 something years removed from being a fat kid. But I sometimes I don't feel like my stories is relatable anymore because when they see me, they don't see that person. They just see the fit bodybuilder Matt. You know what I mean? And so it's like unachievable in a way. Does that make sense? With
Yeah. No.
is that ever something like you're like, there's no way. And then as you slowly get closer and closer, you're like, oh, I've got a tricep, I've got shoulders, biceps. And then you're starting to see like,
Well, I was super naive. So for me, when I first started with you, I was like, man, I could probably put on some muscle here in the next 6 months or something like that. Who knows? And then after, like, do I think it's unattainable now? No. But I want to say about a year, and I was like, man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I love the grind, but this is way harder than I thought it was going to be.
growing muscle is definitely the hardest thing. To me, growing muscle is way harder than losing fat all day because I can get lean pretty fast, but it takes me years to put on muscle. No
Hmm.
matter what I'm putting in my body, it doesn't matter. You still have to work. You got to eat. It's just, it's way
Yep.
harder. It's way harder to put on muscle. Um, if somebody, let me see, if somebody listening feels stuck right now, but can't tell why, What would you tell them to look at first?
Have you been tracking your food like as much as you said you have been? Because like I went to the gym, like granted, like I told you, training, I don't even remember what I was doing for training. I think I was making it up each and every time I walked into the gym or when I finally got some equipment at the house, was using that. But like, do you actually know what you're putting in your mouth on a daily basis? Like we can all sit there and track like a couple protein shakes that we decided to drink, or well, I think this much chicken's on my plate, so I'm going to put down 2 servings of it. Like we can all do that, but like, are you actually tracking the food? Because like the biggest thing, and it's not all calories in, calories out, but like you can know, you can have an idea of how much you're at least intaking. So that would be the first thing I would tell anybody.
Yeah. And I think that honestly is where most people are when they come inside indoors. Like they they don't need necessarily more effort. They just need more clarity on exactly what to do.
Yeah.
You know, the roadmap needs to be laid out because there's so much information. People just get overloaded. They don't know what to listen to or who to
Hmm.
listen to. I think one of the cool parts about you is like you say, this is my coach. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to trust him. And since you have, look at your results. What's your total weight loss from your heaviest to today?
I don't know. I don't really know what my absolute heaviest weight was, period. I know I was somewhere over 400 because I remember the first time I legitimately weighed myself to see where I was at, I had already started going to the gym for like 6 months. So I know I was already down like a half pant size. I remember having to get the belt out and I pulled in one more when I first started. So I know I lost like 20 or 30 pounds before I weighed myself. But I know I was over 400 pounds. I want to say at the lowest weight we got to together, I was 196 or 197. And so we're looking at least at like, we'll just say 203 pounds. And that, now I'm up between 209, 212 somewhere, just depending on the morning. So like I'm up a little bit now, but I've got a lot more muscle than I did at 197. So
Oh yeah, that cut was hard, dude. But hey, we had to pay the fat tax. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Get this thing here. If this episode with Andy resonated with you guys, all I want you to do is just comment coach or shoot a DM and just comment coach, and we'll reach out to you and help you just like this guy, just like him. And we can get you on track and do some amazing things. So, talk to you soon. Hope it resonates.